Morning Cup of Joe and talking about hype drops. And we are absolutely honored here today to have, quite possibly, in my opinion, what should be or what could well be one of the biggest hype drops, coming up, certainly, in sort of the near to midterm here. We've got the team from UNXD here with us today. And it is awesome. It is awesome to have you out here today. Just want to make sure we can hear you okay over there and on the UNXD account. Do we, by any chance, have Shashi perhaps?
That is me, and I am here.
And it's me, Nick. I'm also here.
I
GM.
love it. I love it. GM, and it's
Good
awesome.
morning.
It's so awesome to have you guys here. Thank you for coming out and taking the time to hang out with us.
It's a pleasure. It's 2 o'clock in the morning where I am, but still going strong.
Hey, you got it. You got it on the other side of the sleep cycle. Well, I tell you what, Shachi and Nick, why don't we get into it? Of course, the UNXD team here, working basically with Dolce and Gabbana to bring, as it says on the lid, bring an iconic luxury to the metaverse. So again, a very big g'day to Shashi and Mick. Now, UNXD are a company bringing iconic luxury and culture to the metaverse. And of course, you've partnered with global luxury brands, which is just massive, right? Massive. I mean, D&G is basically about as big as it gets. And of course, not to mention, you're hosting, I believe it is, the upcoming Metaverse Fashion Week, right? And I think that's coming up next week, isn't it? So let's hear from you. Perhaps we'll start with Shashi on the UNXD Twitter account here. Why don't you share with us a little more about perhaps UNXD as a business, a brand, and perhaps a little about yourself if you'd like.
Sure, yeah. First off, it's really a pleasure to join this AMA with you guys today. We appreciate you having us. We appreciate all of you listening in from wherever in the world that you are. So just to kind of recap what you said, our mission at UNXD is to bring iconic luxury and culture to the metaverse. And ultimately, we are trying to bridge two distinct worlds, luxury and crypto. And the fun part is that we get to work with some of the world's greatest brands who have entrusted us as partners with them to bring their creativity and to ideate and create with them and bring that creativity to the blockchain via UNXD. And the luxury and crypto worlds really are two spaces that have not traditionally intersected. So trying to bring them together is a fun opportunity and a fun challenge. But from our background, we're one of the few teams, I think, that do sit at that intersection of crypto and luxury and have a background in both. On the crypto side, we first got into this space in 2015, a little bit earlier than some, a little bit later than others. And initially, we're just trading crypto and arbitraging the different exchanges because price discovery was so poor. In 2018, with some friends, I started a small investment vehicle and invested in a bunch of different projects. And during that time, ended up getting close to the team of what is now called Polygon. And their founders moved to Dubai early last year, which is where I've been for about 15 years and where Nick had been for almost 10 years. He's now in LA. And they had just rebranded to Polygon and were getting started on their journey in the culture and NFT space. And we saw an opportunity to collaborate with them at the same time that we were getting specifically into the NFT space. And we ended up building UNXD on Polygon as a platform and became one of the first high value NFT projects on their chain when we launched with Dolce & Gabbana last summer, which is definitely a topic that we'll get into in a bit. But on the luxury side, our background is actually much, much longer. In 2009, Nick and I started a company called Nervora, which is a media company that since our inception has been working very closely with a company called Condé Nast, which is the world's most iconic publisher of luxury media and the parent of brands like Vogue and Vanity Fair and GQ and The New Yorker and Allure and Condé Nast Traveler and Glamour and a whole bunch of other brands. And so we've been working with them since the very beginning of 2010. And very interestingly, the guy who introduced us to Condé Nast and really the reason why we ended up working with them is Alexis Ohanian, who was one of the founders of Reddit and has been, I guess, all over the news the last couple of days because he's on the board of the ApeCoin DAO. But in 2012, we launched Condé Nast's first publication in the Middle East, which was a digital fashion publication. And so built that over a few years. And in 2016, we became the youngest team to ever launch an edition of Vogue when we launched Vogue Arabia. And that was a big first for Condé Nast when we launched Vogue in the Middle East. It was actually the first time that the Vogue brand had ever launched digital first, which today probably seems like a quaint decision, especially among an audience of people like you who are all digital natives. But back in 2016, for a brand like Vogue that historically has been so driven by print, it just wasn't the most conventional decision. And Nick and I had literally zero background in print media, so it wasn't the easiest decision from Condé Nast to entrust their crown jewel to us. But somehow they came along with us, and we ended up launching Vogue across 22 different countries in the Middle East at the same time. So it was also the first time Vogue ever launched to an entire region at once, as opposed to a single country. And even until now, it's the only edition of Vogue in the world that is fully bilingual, both digitally and in print. So we actually publish Vogue across both mediums, bilingually in English and Arabic. And so we've actually spent the last 5 years turning Vogue Arabia into one of the largest editions of that brand globally. And it's given us a very unique perspective on not just the luxury industry, but on culture. And along the way, we've launched Vogue Man and Vogue Living in the region, and also launched Wired in the Middle East in 2019. And so in many ways, really what we're doing in the NFT space somehow sits at the combination of everything that we've been working on, both professionally and personally, for over a decade: luxury, crypto, and culture. But I think that the most critical word here is culture. And that's really the primary lens through which we look at the world. We're trying to come at everything we do from the perspective that we are a culture company first, that just so happens to be enabled by technology, rather than being a tech company that's in search of culture. And to some, I think that might sound like a fairly subtle difference, but for us, it's a much deeper, more philosophical perspective in a way, just backed by over a decade of us being creators of culture ourselves. And so our perspective and appreciation of luxury just comes from being deeply embedded in that world for such a long time. And the relationships that we have in that space have been forged over the last 10, 12 years. And a decade is how long we've been working with Dolce & Gabbana, for instance. But truthfully, all of this sounds like it was a planned journey. None of it was planned. We did not know that we'd end up here. We never set out to be an NFT or a crypto company, but somehow everything that we've been working on has led us to where we are now. And I think given us a background and perspective that we think that not that many people have, and we are excited to put that perspective to work.
Great to hear. Like, it's hard to really follow up after such a fantastic history there. What a journey to lead you here. And we do like talking to projects around brought them to the point of launching in Web3, and how did they get here. So, that was fantastic to hear. And we're really glad that you are bringing these brands to us, because it has been something that we've been longing for in the trader community and in the wider NFT DGen space. That legitimacy, the big brands, the big culture, and on culture. It's something that I wanted to dig into a little bit more. We understood from our research that was a strong focus for you guys, and hearing you talk, it's clear culture is key, and we love that as community. Community and culture is one. It's just a great thing. But I want to know, so you want to influence culture, you want to bring your culture here and help shape the way the Web3 journey evolves. Can you talk about, through DG Family, how you are going to try to influence this space with your culture?
So, hold on.
I think your headphones or mic might not be working, Nick.
Okay.
Rugged.
Sorry. Yeah, I was rugged for a second there. So speaking more broadly about how we want to influence culture, as the publishers of iconic global media brands like Vogue and Wired, we understand that how to cover and to create cultural moments We also really have the pleasure of working with many top luxury brands who are culture creators in their own right. But specifically for a project like DG Family, we aim to influence the culture by serving as a bridge between communities. We're really functioning as translators as well as creators. And specifically with DG Family, we're changing traditional fashion culture by helping luxury brands understand how to translate into a new medium. Importantly, we're bringing, 3D cinematics, modeling, and texturing to the fashion world beyond what's done to prepare just a new garment. We're trying to create a respect for 3D art in and of itself, and playing with the connection between them and the physical items that they could represent. We want to make them both real and valuable. We're also showing how Web3 tokenization can support a collector community. In the Web2 world, connecting with collectors is a very manual process, or can be intrusive, going and asking for emails and phone numbers and stuff like that. But in the Web3 world, we can take the intimate experience that Dolce & Gabbana has with their customers and strengthen those connections through Web3 tokenization. For the Web3 community, we hope to change the culture by expanding the kinds of projects and participants in the space. We really want to introduce the community to fashion and those in fashion to the Web3 community. This requires building trust between the crypto natives and some of the big name brands that they may be skeptical of entering the space. But overall, we see our work as expanding the relevant audience for Web3 and using Web3 to power creating more and better digital and physical experiences. So it's a very human-led approach in that respect. And we like to say that what we're doing is made by humans for humans. And really that technology for the sake of technology has really never been our ethos, but that technology is the enabler and not the end goal.
I love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You talk about technology being an enabler, and really Web3 and the formation of the communities that we've seen in the space is absolutely indicative of that. And just what you were talking about, with establishing trust is just so important and so key in the space, and it's just exactly what we need right now. So we love to see it. To be honest with you, a quick one here. Actually, this isn't actually your first time, right, working with Dolce & Gabbana in the Web3 space, and we can also see you've worked with other luxury brands as well. So UNXT is working with Jacob & Co, for example. Can you tell us, actually just expanding on the topic of I suppose Web3 and developing trust, can you tell us what your experience has been like serving really as the bridge between Web2 luxury brands and Web3? How are they responding?
Yeah, so as Shashi mentioned, we've been in the luxury space for a long time, so we really have a deep appreciation for the industry, how it sees itself, and what makes it special. And we're really looking to bring some of that magic to the metaverse, but in a native way. And that gets back to that aspect of us serving as translators and as a bridge. We kind of see those things as synonymous. And so obviously, because of our relationship and work at Vogue, we have deep relationships with a lot of the brands that work in the luxury space, and I've worked with many of them for over a decade now, I guess. For instance, we've been working with Dolce & Gabbana for over that period of time. So when we first approached them with the idea of launching an NFT collection, it came from a place of collaboration and credibility, since we had worked with them for so long. And that's really gets back to that fact that we're trying to build, there's a lot of work that goes into building trust on the luxury and fashion side of things, and then also within the crypto community. So we're bridging both of those because we are part of both of those communities. Importantly, Web3 is built around a set of values in its approach towards culture and creativity. And we found that Dolce & Gabbana deeply embodied those values, but in the real world. This is kind of looking at things for, transparency, community, all of those things wrapped into how they're approaching the unveiling of their collections and the way they interact with the collectors in the real world. So building on what Shashi had previously said about culture, that was our initial frame of reference when first introducing the idea of NFTs to Dolce & Gabbana. We literally told them that if you remember nothing else about this conversation, remember this, that NFTs are about culture, not about technology. And that really resonated with them and also made it less scary to say. All of a sudden, they could understand how NFTs represented an opportunity to create culture, which they have already been doing for almost 40 years. Only this time, it's enabled by a new form of technology. They're moving into a new medium. Amazingly, this whole journey started when Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana personally approved the idea of working together. And so here's a brand that's almost 40 years old, but still willing to forge the way and innovate in the absence of any real case study. So we were the first for them, and they were the first for us.
Quick sidebar here. I think this is actually an interesting side story. From the moment we first pitched the idea to Dolce & Gabbana, it actually took them less than 24 hours to approve the idea of launching a collection, which is just a remarkably fast turnaround for any organization, much less an organization of that size that's doing billions of dollars in revenue a year. And I think with what Nick was saying, it was really about setting the context of what we were doing and why it was meaningful, and taking the teeth out of the reasons why something like crypto or NFTs or blockchain are so scary to brands. Like, we knew that if we approached them with the idea that we wanted to launch a new technology with them, their eyes would just gloss over. For us, we knew that how they saw themselves as an organization and how Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana see themselves personally is just as artists. So approaching it from the perspective of culture and creativity was really the way of breaking through and making it something that was meaningful to them. And we honestly have nothing but admiration for their willingness to take this adventure with us. There wasn't a case study for what we were doing when we launched it. There was just a complete lack of information or examples of what we were doing might look like, and they were willing to go on that journey with us. So we have a great deal of respect for what it took to do that from their part.
I think that's a really interesting part about kind of the leveling of the playing field, is that you could have Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana in the same place as people who are trying to get an invite to Foundation or putting their first piece up on Super Rare, that, you know, coming to the space as, I guess what you would say, traditional artists in the fashion space, and then moving into Web3, they still had to cross that same bridge that everybody else did. And that's, I think, where we come to the point of authenticity, I think, for the way that collection was put together and the way that we're approaching things with DG Family. And I think honing into that a bit more, the idea of family is actually something that's really central to Dolce & Gabbana already. So Dolce & Gabbana's head of couture, Giuseppina, actually highlighted this to us, saying how the coworkers and collectors are like family. In fact, they'd previously launched a campaign around this called DG Family. And as a founder-led brand, their family is closely integrated into how they do business and colors their relationships with all of their collectors. So if you've ever interacted with the brand, you'd actually really see this for yourself too. I know that we saw it the whole entire time that we're going through the Collezione Genesi with them. So it made it really a very natural transition point to Web3. And every brand at this level has excellent craftsmanship, but they had the intimate collector experience. And together we saw this as an opportunity to extend that experience into a new audience, but in a crypto native way.
That's really interesting. I don't think it can be understated that when we talk about big brands in Web3, some of the, I guess, contention has been how they will adopt this space, how they'll move into it. And, you know, there's usually a very timid, a very safe approach. We're seeing them kind of dip their toe in the water. So having UNXD there to act as the conduit, the enabler, the gateway into this space for these big brands, you know, being able, as you say, to get approval for something like that in such a short time with a corporate background, I can attest that's impressive. that is really, really good. And you speak about human first. You talk about the family, which is great leading into discussion around community. We are very big community people here. So, you guys are no newcomers to this space. The Discord's been around for some time now, and you have been working actively in here for, as long as most of us have been traders. But I want to know, so how has developing a community influenced your approach to integrating brands like Dolce & Gabbana? And where specifically do you plan to take the community engagement throughout the life cycle of this project?
I think I can answer that a little bit. I think we started off, and maybe Shashi has some stuff to say as well, as we started off like everybody else in the Web3 space, following on Twitter. I've been a member of Twitter since 2007 or 8, but I never really used it until it came to the growth of the Web3 community. But naturally finding other people, following other people, and those new social spaces became the way that we could introduce these brands to the Web3 community too. So having them highlight the importance of Twitter, getting them introduced to Discord and those sorts of things. However, the entire project has started off in a much more focused community. Collezione Genesi was about trying to show what was possible in the Web3 space, what we could do with Dolce & Gabbana. And then now as we move into DG Family, that's more about showing how we can take that proof of concept of where we've set the bar in what could be created, and then bringing that to a broader audience. And so I think we have yet to see the growth and development around what we're going to do with community through the different kinds of social places that we've created already to date, and the ones that are going to be created in the future. And I guess going back to your question about how that community experience has influenced us. So we've lived it. We're collectors ourselves. We participate in these communities on a personal basis, and we've really seen how Web3 requires a different pace and character of communication with the community. I think that this has been an extension of what happened in the social media space, where for the first time, when you had Facebook and Instagram and Twitter out there, people could leave comments. So you shifted a broadcasting medium into a conversational one, which is no surprise to anybody else. But this is particularly a little new for luxury brands who are used to communicating on a face-to-face basis, and not as rapidly as you would on Discord. But this opens up a whole new area of possibilities, and I think the experience that we're crafting for our Discord and for other platforms is going to be one that's going to seek to engage our collectors directly on the platform, but also seek to get the collectors or community involved with each other. And I think one of the best things about this space is that you can build in public, and people have been very patient. So I would say that people can look for more to come as the sale and release of DG Family rolls out.
Yeah, I think that there's some additional nuance to it, which is also really interesting, because in a way, for luxury brands, so much of what they do already in the real world positions them incredibly well to enter the Web3 space. And some of it is also new to them, and there's some learning that has to go on. So what Nick was mentioning for luxury brands, the part of it that's really new is that typically the method of communication publicly has been more of a broadcast approach rather than a direct sort of community-led approach. But that community-led approach happens very much in the real world. So there's aspects of it that they're comfortable with and aspects that they're not. On another hand, what they're incredibly good at is inspiring this sense of fantasy and whimsy to draw people into their universe. And so in a way, luxury brands really understand how to be the epicenter of an ecosystem and create these very shared experiences, which is in a way a foundation of what community is built upon. And so I think for us, we're looking to try to help to facilitate that process. There are lots of plans that today we're a little bit mysterious about, and that's part of the fun of building in public and having everyone go on this journey with us. It's a little bit like writing an epic tale in real time, but already knowing a little bit of what the next chapter or the end goal looks like.
We love storytelling. And being part of the story, that's why we're here. It is a very good story that we are a part of, and one of the things that's really going to bring us in is and be part of that experience is the item that we're minting. So let's dig into that a little bit. Can you talk to us about DG Family? What is the mint? What is it people are going to be buying? And we understand there's going to be some D&G goodies in there. Can you dig into a little bit? What are people going to be able to get their hands on along with the NFT?
Yeah, I think awesome D&G goodness is a pretty good way of framing it. So we have this community called DG Family, and we actually knew that this was going to be the second step on the journey before we even took the first step. Taking a quick step back, when we started working with Dolce & Gabbana, we had a couple of really important foundational principles that today underpin everything that we do with that brand, and also everything that we do with every brand that we work with. And those two principles were, one, ensuring that if we were going to go on this journey together, that we were both committed to it being a long-term, very intentional journey and not just a trial or a test case. And we literally told the brand that if they wanted to jump into the space with us, they had to jump in head first and to jump in all the way. And that meant committing both internally but also publicly to being in the space and everything that goes along with that, whether it's success or not success, and just experimenting in public. So one of the things that we did very intentionally was, even before the first drop happened in September, we publicly announced what the second drop was going to be, even though we knew that wasn't going to be immediate. And we knew that even in starting with a more limited launch, which is what Collezione Genesi was a collection of 9 one-of-one NFTs, we knew that the next goal was to launch a broader community. And thus the idea of DG Family was born. And even the name links back to how the organization sees itself. Dolce & Gabbana is one of the only founder-led luxury brands today. Most luxury brands, the founders have kind of passed on and are a little bit older. Dolce & Gabbana is about 40 years old, but the founders, Domenico and Stefano, still run the company. Domenico's still in the office 8:30 every morning and is often the last person to leave and just wants to create. And we've been able to witness this universe firsthand and what it's like to be on the inside and create with them. And that's what we're trying to provide to people. So the Dolce & Gabbana DG Family community is represented visually by these, what we call, beautifully digitally handcrafted boxes. And we'll chat a little bit maybe later about how we came up with that and why they look the way they do. But these boxes are the key to unlock access to the Dolce & Gabbana universe, essentially access to a stream of creativity that will play out in real time in the years to come. And a world of digital, physical, and experiential benefits straight from what we see as one of the quintessential Italian luxury brands. So it's actually a fairly elaborate program, and something which we think will be really additive to the ecosystem. And we feel that if we get it right, it's going to, in a way, be seen as a blueprint for the industry. But one of the things that we have to do is actually to go out and evangelize it, because it's not the simplest program to explain. It can't really be distilled into a single word or a single sentence. But basically, the DG Family boxes function as mint passes, which grant access and benefits to the holders. And those benefits are a roadmap of exclusive drops and events that play out both in the metaverse and in the real world. Those specific benefits depend on the tier of the box, and there are 3 different boxes. One is black, one is gold, and one is platinum, and they're in different rarities. But each tier is additive to the last one. So the black box is the base tier. The gold box includes the benefits of the black box plus more, and the platinum box includes the benefits of the black and gold boxes plus more. So coming back to what those benefits are, they kind of fall into two broad categories. One is drops and one is events. So the drops actually come in three different forms as part of this roadmap. The first form is access to exclusive drops for sale that are only available to DG family box holders. So these are products, both digital and physical, that are only available for sale if you happen to be a holder. So token gated access to these drops, and these drops will not exist in store. They will not exist on e-commerce. So actually the brand is making a very, very deep commitment here to essentially produce an entirely new line of product exclusively for the community that we're building, which takes an incredible commitment, especially when there's physical products involved. The second type of drop is pre-sale access to items that will first be launched to DG family box holders and then later be launched at different prices to the general public. And then the third category of drops are bonus airdrops. And as I mentioned, across these three different categories, some of the items will be digital only and some will be digital and physical. But as an example of one of the bonuses or one of the airdrops, there's a bespoke capsule collection of both digital and physical items that have been personally designed by Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana that will be available as an airdrop to initial holders. Like really, really beautiful items that we can't wait for people to see. There's also a collection that we're launching linked to our presence at the Metaverse Fashion Week next week, which we can chat about a little bit later. Now so that was a little bit of a mouthful, but that kind of covered the general umbrella of what we're doing on the drop side, which is already a lot. On the event side, this is something that Dolce & Gabbana for almost 40 years has been producing just spectacular events all over the world. And we've learned a lot from how they see these things, how they produce them, and the type of magic that they create. So there's going to be a roadmap of both digital and physical events that take place across the year in different places. Digitally, of course, the metaverse is boundaryless, but physically, Dolce & Gabbana is a very global brand. We're a global operation, and so there are different things that we're going to do in different places. Holders of the black box are granted access to any digital or metaverse experience that we do, whereas gold and platinum box holders also gain access to all of the in real life events that we're going to do. And there are a couple, I'm not sure if we've mentioned this before, maybe we have. There are a couple of physical events that we're already announcing that are going to take place that will be exclusive to gold and platinum holders. The first is an event that we're going to host in New York during NFT New York in late June. And another event, and this may or may not be chronological, there's another event that we'll be hosting in Miami during our Basel in December. But there may very well be some surprises that happen along the way. So that is one of the last categories involved here, is that there are just surprises that we're not going to announce up front, but that we have a lot planned that will kind of take place along the way. So there is a benefit to being a long-term holder here, and we're trying to produce a journey of utility that makes it exciting to people who bought into the ecosystem early and hold, but also people that buy in later, that there's just some magic that will come along the way. And around all of this, there is a UNXD metaversal play such that all box holders will also, from time to time, have unique access to overarching UNXD projects and different things that we do with other brands as well as the overall ecosystem grows.
You got it, and that was incredibly concise. And we love to hear about the benefits, and I'm certain, and I think it's absolutely undoubtable for any utility maxis in the crowd listening today that I'm pretty sure you've got it beat with exclusive Dolce & Gabbana product designed specifically for NFT holders. I'm not sure that it gets much better than that. So absolutely amazing work for you, the team at UNXT. Just a quick question, actually, on the tiers of the DG family boxes. So you've mentioned there's multiple specific tiers here. Are these going to be randomly assigned at mint, or is there going to be a selection process available for people who want to pick up a box?
So we're actually just starting to announce some of those deeper mechanics from next week. So this is one area that will have to remain a little bit mysterious for now. But for those of you who are listening in, by next week, there'll be a little bit more information that we start to sprinkle out.
You got it. That's okay. You can't give away all the secrets. I feel like this may have been, we've done our research and we never saw anything about NFT NYC or Miami. So a little bit of alpha for our listeners here today. Now, a bit of a technical question here. Your site mentions that boxes are going to be minted on Ethereum Layer 1 prior to being transferred to owners' wallets on UNXT's platform, which is built on Polygon's Layer 2. And of course, that's to be expected given your pre-existing relationship with the Polygon founders. Can you share a little bit more about this process with us, perhaps, and perhaps any benefits that UNXT's platform will provide holders?
Yeah, I think we can answer that. I think broadly speaking, we're committed to the Ethereum ecosystem. I think the justification for that, the reason for that, I think is familiar to people who've been in the space for a while. And that just comes from the fact that if you're talking about ownership, your ownership is only as strong as the chain that it's on, and only as robust, sorry, I guess is a better word, as the chain and the technology that you're building on. And Ethereum has shown itself to be one of the most robust chains to interact on, although it can be quite expensive, but that expense is also a way of signaling the security of the layer. And so building on the Ethereum ecosystem also includes Polygon for us. And I think importantly, we became fans of Polygon through the release of Collezione Genesi, after acknowledging that our vision for the space is about expanding the Web3 ecosystem and NFTs beyond kind of the typical DeFi, Solidity programming crowd into the fashion space. And if we're going to do that, we have to have scaling solutions to make this more accessible. So building on Ethereum and building on Polygon is important to achieving that that vision. And the only way to do that is to actually start building that today in order to expand that. Granted that, we've also balanced that with the fact that a lot of artwork and I guess more historical pieces are minted on Ethereum Layer 1 as part of provenance. So we play around with this idea between how we're interacting with users on both Polygon's Layer 2 solution and also the Ethereum Layer 1.
And this is very much a real-time experiment. Multi-chain is still really, really early. There are not lots of good examples of multi-chain solutions working well, and people are still trying to figure that out. And we want to be part of the experimentation process to figure out what that looks like. Now, on our platform specifically, one of the things that we are providing support for is very specific user flows that are tied to the unique utilities that are intrinsic to the NFTs that we're launching. So as one example, for NFTs that we launch that have a physical redemption to them, so any NFTs that are linked to a physical product, our platform actually has a built-in user flow for redemption. Which looks and feels a little bit like a Web2 e-commerce experience, but that's something that's not supported out of the box on a platform like OpenSea. So even though our NFTs can be taken off platform and traded on places like OpenSea or LooksRare or anything else when it comes to redemption, either of a physical product or a physical experience. The only way to do that natively will be to come back to the UNXT platform and do that. So that's one of the things that I think will provide value to holders, at least from a platform perspective. But we also recognize that the Web3 ecosystem is about openness, and so we're trying to balance those objectives. I will say one of the natural tensions here is from the luxury side is really trying to ensure as high quality of a user experience as possible. And one of the fears that we had with letting things go a little bit too broad was the idea that someone may purchase an NFT that's tied to a physical product that may have already been redeemed and tried to redeem it off platform and just had a bad experience, and ultimately that doesn't reflect particularly well on us or the brand. So that's part of the reason why we have wanted to build so much functionality into our platform itself, and still somehow try to adhere to some of the key principles of the Web3 space.
That's great. And I mean, what we're hearing is with a lot of projects, multi-chain is part of the roadmap. It's something they look to integrate other chains as their brand and as their product evolves, knowing that you guys are already factoring that in. Each of these chains is essentially a tool in the toolkit. How do we want to use them for different parts of our project? It's really reassuring to hear that is getting baked in already. So thanks for clarifying. And talking about the UNXT platform itself, and this is an interesting dynamic with this drop. We have to, as traders, as buyers, consider we're buying into Dolce & Gabbana, but we're also buying into UNXT and the direction that, as a company and a brand, UNXT is headed. And we also know that you're working with some other luxury brands, Jacob & Co. My gosh, those watches are incredible. But I'd love to know, what is the vision for UNXT as a platform? Now, and as you bring on more brands and as this particular project, DG Family, progresses, what does the platform look like? What is the evolution there?
Yeah, I think speaking about it from the platform, there's kind of the goal that we have on the platform level, speaking about unxt.com, and then there's the goal that we have as a company. And I think going back to what Shashi was saying earlier in the previous question, was looking at the platform, we're really trying to create the best experience for collectors in the long run, but the best experience for collectors of within the vision that we have for NFTs themselves. So looking at other, our intention isn't to compete with OpenSea or LooksRare or SuperRare or any of these other sites, but rather to create the, best front-end interface for interacting with NFTs that have the attributes that we're promoting. So once again, you want it to be very clear to people when they're interacting with it. There's an incredible amount of stuff that you have to understand in UI just to kind of get through buying things in MetaMask. And this has been a barrier to a lot of collectors. So we're incorporating things like Venly. So you can sign up to the site using a username and email, and you'll have a wallet added for you right there. You'll be able to purchase some crypto using your credit card and turn that into buying an NFT directly on the platform, and then get into that ecosystem. So have a much smoother on-ramp. And in the long-term vision, that's going to be moving. We're going to be progressing even further down that road. Although people are obviously the owners of these items and free to participate in whatever markets they choose, we want to be the first amongst peers right there. And I think more broadly as a company, we're talking about, in general, bringing luxury to the metaverse. And we see that as kind of a broad concept where we want to have the best design wherever you are in the metaverse or in your digital life. That includes your clothes, your art, your digital apartment or car if you have it. There are great designers in the real world that have yet to enter the digital space, and we think that Web3 is creating the opportunity the scarcity of their work that's necessary for collectors to be able to, or collectors to be comfortable to purchase those items. And I think more broadly, thinking about it from the theoretical, we do a lot of thinking, like trying to back down to first principles, is to more broadly create programmable culture. And that means building composable products and experiences on top of this concept of digital ownership that's powered through Web3. So that gets back to the same concepts that we've been talking about right now, which is buying an NFT doesn't only unlock a physical product, but can also establish a membership to a brand in a much deeper way. And it's a way for brands to reward collectors. It's a way for collectors to reconnect and carry on a dialogue with the brands themselves. And they know that these people are invested because that ownership is provable on the blockchain. And that's not been possible before. That's not possible without Web3.
Programmable culture. I loved hearing that. I think we could do a spaces just on those two words. But yeah, hearing the vision for the platform is great. And where I want to kind of drag the discussion now is to the art itself. We have spent a lot of time talking about the collection, but this collection is one of culture, and the art is right in the middle. So from all of the potential design choices that you could have drawn from, because there is a lot there within D&G's back catalogue, what inspired a jewelry box as the medium, and then what influenced selecting the Corretto style to be applied to that box? Really interested to hear that.
Yeah, actually, it was a little bit by chance that we first came across this box. There's actually a physical jewelry box that Dolce & Gabbana has made that is in a similar style, and they produced one of them, and it was this beautiful hand-painted, handmade box that I believe sold for somewhere between 20 and 25,000 euros, which of course is an incredible price point for that specific box. But we were so inspired when we saw it for the first time, and somehow there was an aspect of mystery that was linked to the box, but something that felt so human about it, and it felt like a perfect analogy to what we were trying to create, and touched upon so much of the feeling, the spirit, the emotion that we're trying to create. But the actual style, this Corretto style, is native to the region of Sicily in Italy, where Domenico Dolce is from. So they have these horse or donkey drawn carts in Sicily that are hand painted, and so this Sicilian Corretto style is actually the Sicilian cart. So it kind of links back to the origins of the brand, and somehow has this harkens back to the humble beginnings of the brand. Domenico and Stefano didn't come from a place of luxury, and everything that they've created has just come from seeing themselves as humble creators themselves. So somehow it kind of links back to things that we find really exciting, and just felt very humbling and very human in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting taking something that's a handmade item offline and then translating that into a digital form too. I think the whole experience that we went through with the first collection was the realization of how similar in kind the digital creation process is to the physical creation process. I mean, it just means that you're dealing with textures and mapping in the digital space, while you're dealing with kind of sanding and sewing in the physical space. So it's important that the objects being portrayed, or it's important that the artwork that is part of these NFTs has the similar care that particularly Dolce & Gabbana takes in all of the items that they're already producing.
And actually, I mean, coming back to this idea of creation, I mean, we could spend all day talking about it. We've tried to do justice to the beauty and the artistry and the craftsmanship of the products that brands like Dolce & Gabbana make in the real world. Like, that is what makes luxury so special in the real world, and what people really respond to. who are existing luxury buyers. They value the physical artistry, they value the physical craftsmanship. The luxury industry hasn't always been the earliest adopter of technology, and one of the reasons why is there's long been a fear that in jumping into the digital space, they lose some of that aspect of what makes them special in the real world, the physical artistry and the physical craftsmanship. So we've really worked hard to inject that ethos into the approach that we take to creation. One of the big enablers for us is just a really, really high quality internal creative studio that we have with artists that specialize in 3D work and modeling and texturing and photorealism. And we just labor and obsess over what may seem like the most minute details, like the way in which light reflects off of a particular surface of a specific material from a particular angle. These are things that many people may not ever notice, but for the ones that do, there's just an incredible level of appreciation for the detail and the thought process that goes into that. And there are actually some parts of the things that we create digitally that we actually work on texturing and creating that people who look at the animations will never actually see, but we know that it's part of what's driving the animation. And we obsess over the details with that as well. So I don't know. I think there's just a very shared philosophy that we have in the way in which we create that the designers and the brands that we work with also share. And that's one of the reasons why I think the relationship is so symbiotic.
So you guys work with these brands, and you have your own implementation team for the art for the NFTs. So the way I understand it is they bring the designers, they bring the influence of the look and the feel and the creative direction along with you guys working together, and then you implement with your team.
Yeah, it's actually it's a little bit less linear than that. We're involved from the earliest moment of the idea of what we're creating, and then we work together to ideate what a specific collection or launch is going to be, and then where the brands create and design, we mirror that. So they create and design physically, and we create and design digitally, and those two things operated in concert together. So we're much more of a partner and a facilitator in the process rather than just a service provider.
Gotcha. And on the conversation of partnerships and talking about partnerships, zooming out just a little bit here and sort of looking 1 week into the future, you've partnered with Decentraland to bring a fashion week to the metaverse, which is just awesome. And I'm pretty sure this is sort of the first time we're sort of seeing that. What are your thoughts on the current state of fashion in the metaverse, and sort of what's next on the horizon in your opinion?
Yeah, fashion in the metaverse is super exciting and super early. I think it's really inspiring to be in the space so early on and to work alongside so many other passionate creators, both established and emerging, in contributing to both the creation of the industry and its growth. I think that the fun part is that, truthfully, none of us who are in the space and building really know yet where it's going to go. We've kind of likened it to the process of trying to build a plane and build the instrumentation for that plane and build the documentation for that instrumentation while the plane is already in the air. And it's kind of fun just being in the space and experimenting in real time with everyone at the same time. Of course, we have theories about where it's going to go, and I think one of the really foundational beliefs that we have is that fashion is going to be the first killer use case in the metaverse. And having been in and around the fashion industry in the real world for such a long time, we've developed an appreciation for the importance that fashion plays in self-expression, the importance that fashion plays, or the role that fashion plays in identity. But in the real world, you have all of these other things that also play a role in identity: communication, body language. These things are very, very pronounced in the real world. these things are way less pronounced in the metaverse. And so we believe that fashion and the role that it will play will just be outsized or disproportionately high in the metaverse. And so that's kind of one of the key themes behind what we're doing. Now for sorry, go ahead, Nick.
Oh, no, I just totally agree with that. And I think, once again, kind of breaking it down to principles, and that when we try to translate things from the real world into the digital world, that even looking at fashion and how the experience is different in the digital space versus the real space, the reality is very tactile and immersive, and the digital space is very visual and auditory. And how fashion really in the metaverse can be described, or in the digital space can be described as aesthetic applied to an identity, and how people want to represent themselves. So we've actually been seeing a lot of fashion happening in the quote unquote metaverse, or the digital space right now, through the explosion of PFP projects out there. But we are, I guess, going to see that penetrate further into the digital space as we see more places where your aesthetic, or more places that have an important social context, so that your own personal aesthetic, the way you represent yourself, becomes more significant and more important. So you want to go and buy that extra skin, or you want to wear different clothing because you're going to a formal event versus an informal event, or you want a different AR filter for your phone call in the afternoon. These sorts of things. So sorry, Shashi, if I cut you
okay.
off.
Yeah. I guess coming back to the Metaverse Fashion Week, we've actually been talking with Decentraland about the idea of launching something like this since last summer. We were introduced to the team in July of last year, right after we first went public with what we were launching with Dolce & Gabbana. And a good friend of mine was one of the earliest investors in Decentraland and runs a very successful casino business in Decentraland called Decentral Games. And he introduced me to the team at the Decentraland Foundation, and they were all really excited about the prospect of partnering to build out the fashion ecosystem on Decentraland, but also coming back to the principle of openness, they actually want to be a contributor to the ecosystem at large, even if that happens off of Decentraland. So we spent a number of months chatting about what that might look like, and eventually came up with the idea that the best way to introduce fashion more broadly into the ecosystem is to start with a format that resembles something that people already understand. So just by hearing the phrase Fashion Week, people generally already have an idea of what that might look like because they've seen Fashion Week happen in front of them in the real world for such a long time. And so that helps. Again, it takes away the uncertainty. It takes away the ambiguity of what that might look like. So there are actually now lots of partners involved in this process. It's not just us, but the Decentraland Foundation and the team there has been really pivotal in architecting this whole ecosystem and bringing together so many like-minded organizations. So we're one of the curators of the event, but certainly not the only one. And it's been inspiring to us to see just so many parties come together, including organizations that collaborate and organizations that compete, but everyone kind of shares the commitment and the ethos to want to see the space grow. And the best way to see the space grow is to produce events and formats like this that can help to evangelize the mission to a wider group of people, and to do that successfully. And when that happens, it starts to become a sort of rolling rock that gathers steam.
And just on that, so we've mentioned already there are a limited number of fashion brands in the space at the moment. It's an emerging market. It's an emerging market within an emerging market. And with your involvement around Metaverse Fashion Week, how are you using this event as a way to introduce other brands to this space? Is there going to be stuff happening in the background, in the foreground? How are you engaging in the short term to introduce new people?
Yeah, so it's both. We've specifically overseen two aspects of the program. So there's this incredible catwalk that's been created, and there are going to be these catwalk shows that happen over the course of 4 days. The headliner on the opening day of the Fashion Week is Dolce & Gabbana, and they've produced this spectacular collection exclusive to the metaverse. Really, I think what was kind of fun to see was just how inspired the designers Domenico and Stefano got by the prospect of being able to create without limitation, without the constraints of the real world, without the need to adhere to the laws of physics or the availability of materials, and realizing that the only limitation was their own imagination. So they got very, very playful with that, and they produced a collection that we are going to largely reveal next Thursday at the show. But a couple of the looks we're thinking about revealing early to give people a little bit of a sneak peek. And one thing that's actually really cool, and coming back to the idea of utility linked to the DG family, is that this entire collection is going to be made exclusive to DG family holders. And so the only way to get your hands on this, or at least on a primary sale basis, will be to be a member of the community. And actually, most of that collection we're just going to airdrop to our members. So some of that's going to be a bonus, and some of that isn't. They're one of the key brands that's here, and because of the stature, the status of the brand, the presence of Dolce & Gabbana in a format like this brings a lot of legitimacy to the space. And this is really the role that established brands will play, is bringing acceptance, bringing legitimacy, and bringing amplification to new formats like this. Dolce & Gabbana is a brand that's known and loved by tens of millions of people around the world. So the prospect of being able to evangelize the concept of metaverse fashion across such a large stage, with the support of a brand like Dolce & Gabbana and the others that are joining us, is really a wonderful opportunity. And just none of it would have been possible without the parties that were all involved behind the scenes in making this possible. Now, in addition to Dolce & Gabbana, we have other brands like Etro, brands like Jacob & Co., brands like Peter Dundas, brands like Guopei and Elisab, and other brands that people will recognize that are doing different types of activations during the week. Some of those are catwalk shows. Some of those are more experiential installations that people can interact with. And then there's a whole series of talks and lots of other programming that will take place over the next, but over the 4-day event. So I think all of these things will just give people a little bit of a early look at what fashion might look like in the metaverse. And coming back to the idea that Nick mentioned of programmable culture, I think people will take these ideas and run with them, as we hope to ourselves.
You got it. That was so awesome, and thank you so much for sharing your overarching vision. And of course, best of luck. I mean, I'm gonna be there, man. I'm gonna be turning up for Metaverse Fashion Week for sure. And of course, that's happening. I believe it is next week, isn't it? The 24th to the 27th of March, and you've got the Dolce & Gabbana collection show as well going on the 24th. So for anybody out there who's thinking of checking out what UNXT have planned, make sure you're hanging out at Metaverse Fashion Week. Actually, on that, I do have a question for the UNXT team. Now, of course, with your upcoming mint, that we've been talking about for about an hour now, there's an ongoing raffle, I believe it is, right? Which is how people could potentially get access to the public mint. How can our interested listeners score a chance, perhaps, at whitelist between now and mint date? Do they stand a chance still? And if so, what are some ways they might go about it?
Yeah. So first, the traditional thing, like and subscribe, to our Discord. You can join us at discord.gg/UNXD. The approach that we've taken overall has been a very open whitelisting process. We didn't want to do anything like only limiting access to people with expensive PFPs, having to buy other tokens, or require a massive amount of grinding in the community in order to be accepted. Of course, we want to have people who are devoted and committed to the community, but I think that this was important for us to reach the kind of breadth that we wanted to have open methods that are just based purely on chance of getting accepted into the whitelist. So there are really two main methods of getting on the whitelist. You can participate on an open raffle. It's managed through premint.xyz. You can get the link on our Discord, and I believe that we might have a tweet pinned to our own Twitter account.
Link in bio as well.
Yeah. Okay. So the usuals of link in bio and stuff like that. So there's the pre-mint method, and then we have these creative competitions that we're working on within the Discord community itself. We want these to be fun and engaging, but also very accessible to people. One of the first competitions we had was effectively a coloring contest that could get as crazy as you wanted. We kind of inspired by kind of the meditative aspect or just the childlike fun that you can have just from coloring in a coloring book. We just made a white blank of the top of the box and presented that to the community to do whatever they wanted with it. And one of the most creative submissions was actually taking the DG family box and turning it into an asteroid that was going to hit planet Earth, and it was the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. And so the community does with it whatever they want. The hive mind can come up with some pretty creative things. So now we have another actual competition ongoing too, which is trying to have people imagine a little bit of what you were trying to get out of us earlier, which is what's in the box. And people can similarly open up their creativity. It doesn't necessarily have to be as artistically inclined even as before, but the creativity is the important part, and how well it entertains or excites the community too as well. So you can get more of those details by going into our Discord and looking at the most recent announcements. If you have any questions, I'm sure other people in the community would be happy to answer. If not, ourselves or any of the moderators that are there too. But also, finally, we do have a route for connecting with existing communities, like partnerships that we have with you guys at Metaverse HQ. It's really about trying to connect what we're doing with other communities that have a similar ethos and are inspired in the same way that we are. So these communities have been granted whitelist allocations to share with their communities as well. And we trust that they'll have kind of the same approach in trying to get great community members to be on the whitelist and hopefully be part of DG family.
You got it. That's so awesome. And look, thank you for sharing it again. Thank you to both Shashi and Nick for taking the time to come out with us today. The team from UNXT NFT, make sure you show them some love. We'd like to perhaps open it up for a quick one or two questions. I think we've perhaps got time for one or two quick questions from the audience if we've got any. So if you do have now perhaps a question for the team, go ahead and put your hand up. And the lovely Poopaloopin, the Metaverse HQ account, will bring you up on stage. We'll give it a couple of seconds here, but of course, we do have looks like we do have a question here from Yeesh. Yeesh, what's happening? You're on the stage, my man. What's your question?
Hello, hi, thank you. And thank you guys for this AMA. It was very informative. I think part of my question has already been answered, but maybe you can provide a little bit more information, the UNXT team, on, you mentioned that you have a lot of experience in the luxury brand industry. You've been in it for quite a while, and you mentioned that the metaverse is something that's kind of new that you guys are taking on, and you've started to build this team around you. So my question was, like, have you had any unexpected challenges, kind of bridging that gap between like your experience in the luxury fashion brand industry and then kind of migrating that over to the metaverse? Has your target audience, like, do you see it, has it changed since you've made this transition? And, you know, who are you bringing onto your team to make sure that this is like a smooth transition into this space?
I think I can take part of that question, and I think it's a, you know, we've spoken about values, but then there's just also what people value. So I think people in the traditional, people who are in the traditional sense are the biggest fans of fashion, like physical fashion, just because that's what exists today. Whereas in the digital space, it's kind of a new concept. The digital space is kind of one of plenty or of infinity. You know, you can have as many copies of an image or of a photo as you want. Like, there are whole businesses built around this, selling more storage for cheaper than before. You know, Moore's law, and every year processing power increasing. So it's supposed to be the world of plenty. And so digital people or people in the crypto space adjusted to this idea of digitally enforced scarcity pretty quickly. But that was new to the physical fashion space, which really exists more in investing in craftsmanship and, I guess, running up against the constraints that you have from production methods, and that also being part of what that scarcity in the physical sense, part of being what contributes to the value or the perceived value, or in simply thinking about it, the perceived value of what people are making. And I think it's really been the challenge sometimes is to get people to realize that digital things can be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than physical things, because of the way that they can fit within an ecosystem. And it's like, I think that, you know, you have people who are on Twitter. It's not a physical thing, but if you took away their Twitter account, you know, they would be devastated. There's value attached to that, even though it exists only as bits, because because all value is culturally created, and this value is created and reinforced in the digital community. So, whereas I guess that's the community approach, whereas like the offline world comes from the legacy of this restriction around resources, and that being kind of the implied base value of things. So getting the two parties, I think, to understand each other is always the constant challenge, and to understand and provide things to each other that is seen as or recognized as value from the other community. So, you know, the people in the fashion space don't want to just create a token that then is launched, even though there are people who are, you know, traders and things like that will maybe, you know, benefit from the price action on some kind of a coin. But that's not what the people in the fashion space are interested in doing or what they want to do. And then similarly in the, you know, you don't want to create, you don't want the fashion community to create one-offs that just might only exist as a reproduction or a copy of something that they've already done and that wasn't done in a digitally native way for that community. So I think that's really been the challenge there. If I guess hopefully I answered your question in that answer.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Thank you.
That was an awesome question. Thank you, Yeesh, and of course, Nick, for taking the question. Next up, I believe we have Julian coming up to the stage. Julian, we do have you on the stage here, so what's your question for the team? And you are on mute, Julian, just in case. We got you. There we go. Okay. Julian, we can hear you, so feel free to go for your question for the team, if you can.
Julian, you're on mute.
I think maybe you're having audio issues. unmute and maybe take out headphones, or that's usually what gets me.
Yeah, we unfortunately do seem to have lost Julian, which is unfortunate. Look, if we do have somebody else with a question, we'll take somebody up here just for a final question here for the team. And we do have Santosh. Santosh, welcome to the stage. What's your question for the team?
Hey, hi everyone. So my question to the team is, I'm just wondering what is the longer term vision of the team? Like, what is the longer term utility of holding this NFT? When I say longer term, I mean to say, what would I get if I hold this NFT for next 3 to 5 years? Uh, can you guys?
Sure, you got it. Yep. So your question for the team was, what's the long term utility, right?
Yeah.
So 3 to 5 year time span,
Yes.
right? No worries.
Yeah.
And for that,
If I
no worries. That's one for the team.
Yes, that's the question. If I mint it now and if I want to hold it for next 5 years, what would I get? Let's say, for example, we friends, Gary Vee is sending like, there is one NFT which is gift code. He's sending like 8 drops within the next 3 years. Is there something like that, or what's the vision? I just wanted to understand.
I would say over that length of time, we don't have a specific set commitment to a number of drops over, X number of years. I think that the space is transforming too much for that, but I think our central commitment is around us as a company and us as partners with the brands that we're working with to be bringing value to the community through the kinds of products and experiences that we're opening up to token holders as part of this community. And I think, I don't know, I mean, I've had some experience in the financial space from doing the DeFi stuff. I don't know if, I think maybe you're looking at it a little bit like, a derivative. I think we're looking at it kind of more as a narrative. And it's a story that we're writing, every day, every month, and every year for the foreseeable future of us as a company. And the people who value that token or that box, that NFT today, will be the ones that are able to experience the fashion and experiences over this year and the coming year. As well as be part of the journey that we're writing through the next 6 months and year long. As these communities where these products are being released, so putting things into Decentraland, or into Sandbox game, the fate of those items are going to be tied to the growth and sophistication, I guess, of those communities as well. So I think that's the way that I guess I can conceive of that right now, because this is not a financial instrument or something like that, but the commitment comes from the trust between us as creators and our partners and the collector community itself.
The one thing I would add to that is that the real benefit, or one of the benefits, I'll say, of working with a organization like Dolce & Gabbana that has been around for almost 40 years is that there is very little ambiguity about their ability to deliver value and create in public over a long period of time. So in a way, the fact that they are such a well-established brand for such a long time serves as an incredible forcing function to make our team think very long term. For them, as an organization, entering the Web3 space has never really been about the money, but about continuing their brand story and adding value in a new ecosystem the same way that they have for decades now. So I think if the thrust of your underlying question is really about longevity, that's probably the best way to think about it. A brand like that just doesn't do anything with the idea of it being a short-term decision.
You got it. And thank you very much to Santosh for that question for the team. Unfortunately, I do think that does seem to be limited the amount of time that we have today for questions for the team from UNXD. Of course, make sure you check them out in their Discord server. That's discord.gg/UNXD. And of course, on Twitter at UNXD_NFT. Now, we are just about getting to the close of our segment here, but before we let you both off the hook, Mick does have a surprise pop quiz for your pop quiz trivia question for a bit of an Australiana term. Mick, over to you, my man.
Thanks, Vigil. Yeah, we like to end on a bit of a light note. It's been, amazing conversation. There is so much depth, so much detail to what we've covered with you guys today. And Shashi, Nick, just thanks for being here and thanks for talking us through what the brand's about and what people are going to be able to get here. So we look forward to talking to you guys again with the other brands that you're bringing in, the other drops that are coming. So yeah, thank you so much. But we've talked fashion, right? Fashion is a really important thing to everyone that's tuning in. Here in Australia, we are a little bit fashion orientated. Some people would like to think it's an acquired taste. But I wanted to test you on your knowledge of Australiana fashion. So it's only one question, very simple one. Do either of you know what double pluggers are? What is your best guess? Let's start with Nick.
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to, be a little truthful here because Google is right in front of me. But
oh no,
we're both
and I can
terrible.
type quickly, and I can't resist it because it's too embarrassing not to know, especially when I have Australian friends. So
they can't be that good friends.
So is it a pair of, let's say, something that you might wear to the beach?
I do think you're on the right track there. Shashi, have you cheated, or are you?
I cheated more quickly than he did.
Oh no! Well, you can unveil the actual truth behind the double pluggers then.
Yeah, I cheated 120 words a minute. It says the highest standard of thong.
Spot on. That is it. They're called double pluggers based on the double plugging of the thong to the back of the shoe, the sandal. So they are a national icon here, and great to know that you guys are putting in the effort to learn a little bit out of our culture. So yeah, look, thanks guys for attending. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you got a lot out of the discussion here, and we look forward to seeing you all on the next Spaces.